second half of today's annual meeting features a presentation by Fayette County Public Schools Superintendent Demetrus Liggins, Ph.D. Dr. Liggins is a native of Longview, Texas, and holds a bachelor's degree in education and a master's degree in English from California State University, Fresno, a master's degree in education from Stephen F. Austin State University, and a doctorate degree in K through 16 educational leadership and policy from the University of Texas, Arlington. Dr. Liggins is a seasoned educator with 21 years of experience in education in urban and suburban settings. Superintendent Liggins joined Fayette County Public Schools on July 26, 2021, after a highly competitive national search and unanimous vote by the Fayette County Board of Education. Prior to joining Fayette County Public Schools, Dr. Liggins served for 4 years as superintendent of schools in Greenville Independent School District, an urban district of roughly 6,000 students outside of Dallas, Texas. Bilingual in English and Spanish, Dr. Liggins led several innovative world language initiatives in Greenville and is credited with dramatic improvements in the district's academic and fiscal performance. And now, Dr. Demetrus Liggins, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for having me. It is quite the honor. And I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you all and just really to share a little bit about Fayette County Public Schools and where we currently stand as a district, as an important piece of our community in general. So, but I'll begin just by telling you just how overwhelmed I've been with the welcome here. It has just really been an amazing opportunity to get to know everyone, to see everyone, and to learn about this community. It is truly the type of place where I completely understand why people come and stay and fall in love with it. I've been an educator, as you stated in the introduction, my entire career. I went to school and became a teacher, and have stayed in education ever since college. And I definitely, part of my personal philosophies, I value having a quality school in every single neighborhood. I think that is extremely important. But I also value allowing students to learn according to their interest and things that are most important for them in their development. And so I'm very eager to support schools and partner with those who support our district. And there's nothing, and I'm very comfortable and appreciate the fact that so many people in this community is comfortable with talking about the work surrounding equity and the need for it in our public schools. And so that's been something that to me has just really, I've greatly appreciated in this community, because where I'm from, it's talked about in closed session areas, but not so much publicly. And it really is a public discussion that needs to be had if we're going to impact all students and a school system moving forward for all kids. So when I came in originally, as you noted, I came in July of last year. I've been here about 9 months now. I met with every single principal. I met with every senior staff member. And I made a commitment to my principals that I would make a campus visit where it would not just be a drop-in to say hello. I wanted to really learn about them and their campuses. I believe very strongly that we are here because of the kids. None of our jobs in a school system exist without the students. And our students are on our campuses. So I make a very concerted effort to make sure that I'm on campuses regularly. And this year I actually made the commitment to my principals. We have 73 campuses currently, that I will come for a full intensive. I want to see classrooms, I want to meet kids, I want to see instruction, I want to meet office staff, support staff, etc. And I had made a commitment that I was going to do that the first semester. Bit off a bit more than I can chew. It didn't quite happen that way, but I'm glad to say I finished yesterday my 72nd one, and next week is my 73rd campus, meaningful campus visit. So, and I spend anywhere from 3 to 4 hours with the principal, and really we dig into data. We go visit classrooms. We just talk and get to know each other, and so that's something I'm quite pleased with. I've attended quite a few community events throughout this year, especially this spring, now that community events are actually happening again. And as I noted earlier, I'm currently at Takes Creek High School, where we're having an autism fair. And so went and took advantage of that this morning while you all took care of your business, and now back with you. But it's really been a year. The past 9 months have just really been about listening and learning. And I've learned quite a bit, and people have been willing to share quite a bit as well. So I've really taken in quite a bit. Some of the strengths of our district, I'd just like to tell you that I've noticed from that is we have a very talented and committed, passionate staff. I'd really put our staff up against any school system that I've ever been in. Extremely talented individuals that come from a variety of backgrounds and lifestyles and interest levels, but all people in our district we're able to recruit some of the best and the brightest. Our students, of course, are absolutely incredible. We're having students that are winning state recognition, national recognition, in some cases even international recognition. So it's truly an honor to be able to work with such students who also are supported by engaged families and community. Our community have proven to really embrace the school system and support us, and to really come to our need or to our call should we request anything. There's lots of partnerships, and some of those partnerships have really allowed us to be innovative and create some of our high performing programs, such as our magnet programs, our gifted and talented offerings. But we've also have a huge focus on that is very unique to Fayette County from my experience in working with children who the whole child. And so really making sure that we are looking at the entire child, not just their academic performance, but making sure that we're looking at their interest in music. In every school, for example, we have now. We offer world languages. We have several programs where students can choose to go to certain schools outside of their neighborhood based off of their interest level. And so that is extremely important to me. And another thing that our school system does very well is our mental health and student support. That has truly been an overwhelming, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but it's really been an opportunity for students to express themselves like ever before. But we're doing a lot with that, with our safety plan and making sure that students are coming to school and prepared to deal with issues outside of school or in school that may impact their learning. We're extremely fiscally sound. And in fact, we are able to do a lot more due to some of the state's funding with stimulus funds that we've received, and then the district's stimulus funds that we received. So on top of our regular budget, we have millions of extra dollars that have really come in handy when dealing with some of the issues that we've experienced as a result of the pandemic. And of course, we continue to take care of our facilities. I mentioned a few moments ago, I am at Takes Creek High School, which is actually will be the last year in this building. We're building on the same property just behind the school, a state-of-the-art facility that will really probably be an example throughout the nation as the 21st century high school. And so that is something that the district really prides itself in, and we're making sure that we take care of that. But some of the challenges I will tell you I've experienced coming in, and it goes without saying, but COVID has been really the covering over everything. There has been nothing until recently that we could do that did not involve COVID. every decision I made, every programmatic change wanted to be implemented, every single aspect of operating the district was flagged with the question, well, what about COVID? And so it's been really been taking quite the time and the attention. But over the summer, I was optimistic when I came in. You know, when I came in, we had just this past July, we had passed vaccines were getting into arms, and it seems like things were going really, really well. And sure enough, the moment I came in, Delta hit. Oh, my apologies. And so when Delta came in, we found ourselves having to dealing with that and having to continue to wear masks and to make sure we put protocols into place to take care of our students and our staff. And I remember actually having over the holiday break, I had lunch with our board chair because Delta was subsiding and things seemed to be going back to somewhat back to normal. And I was like, I'm so excited about second semester because we will be able to possibly have a regular school year. And it will be an opportunity for us to get our kids, you know, to have less quarantines, less isolations, less illness. And sure enough, when we came back from the winter break, Omicron came in and it was worse than it ever had been before. And so that was really short-lived and it happened so quickly. But we ended up ultimately, I hope we're at a point now to where we're possibly getting to a point to where we are moving forward just before spring break. Of course, our community went to a lower level of community spread and hospitalization. So we were able to remove masks, which has been about a month now. So things seem to be normalizing. I'm knocking on wood and really hoping that we continue to keep it that way. Some of the things that the district has learned from COVID, if you don't mind me going over those, and some of the things that we've done since the beginning of the pandemic. Like each family, businesses, and organizations, Fayette County Schools has impacted the pandemic in very complex ways. We've realized some of the human toll that it took on our families and some of our staff members. Not only have we had families and students that have grieved the loss of employees, and along the way, you know, employees have lost siblings and parents and grandparents and loved ones. But the district also experienced, it wasn't COVID related, but it did happen to be in the middle of the pandemic, lost my predecessor, the superintendent, to cancer. And so when I came in, I knew it was really something that was important to continue to heal and to continue to work to heal it, because everyone has gone through so much. And so that's been a very huge focus across my my tenure thus far. But the initial impact of COVID was really, I mean, as you all know, we were forced to close the doors to the schools and completely reinvent ourselves. So, but during that time, I'm proud to say from March of 2020 to February of 2022, there was over 2.6 million breakfasts and lunches served. We delivered over 3,000 families, groceries to 3,000 families each week, delivered household goods like cleaning supplies and toilet paper to more than 625 families. Our staff made over 16,000 home visits, provided mental health services and families over 107,000 times. We've logged more than 225 student contacts with counselors, social workers, mental health specialists. We provided internet access to over 2,500 families, and we fielded more than over 100,000 phone calls to our technology help desk. And although I wasn't with the district during a lot of that time, I will tell you, looking at the plan and looking at the impact, it was a great plan. And the community was served well by the school district. And I think students received the best resources, and our families did as well, that the district had to provide. And considering this was something that no one had ever gone through or had to experience or had any opportunity to prepare, I really commend the district for the way that they've taken care of it. And as you know, the only thing we've had so far, and I mean, the only consistency with COVID-19 has been change. We experienced, the politics of the virus, and the and all that came with that. We had families that were terrified. We had families that thought it was a hoax. We had students of parents of special needs, students who have fragile, medically fragile children, and we had others that were excited and wanting their kids to get out and continue to play sports and participate in things. And so it really had to do a great balance of trying to figure out exactly how do we serve all the needs of all of our students and to continue to provide an excellent educational experience. And I can tell you from experience, no one was 100% happy, because there just was not a way to do that. There was, we were committed, and I still am with the Board of Education, to ensure that we're following the science, that we were committed to following the advice of the CDC. We partnered extremely well with our local health department, and we've really continued to take their advice. I would tell people often, when I get all sorts of emails saying, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And my overall and common response was, I'm an educator. I went to school to learn how to educate children. And although that responsibility comes with a lot, it does not, on a normal basis, come with making life or death decisions for families and children. And so I said it would behoove me and to listen to people who went to school to be science experts, to went to school to work in the medical field. And as long as they're advising us to do something in a particular way to keep everyone safe, it is not only, I feel, the responsible thing to do, I feel it is absolutely the ethical thing for me to do in order to do that, because it's really just not fall within my wheelhouse. And so, but then of course we started this school year, and although we were in person, and I've been committed to keeping us in person as much as possible, we still obviously experience the results of the pandemic as it was ongoing. And so we were faced with lots of operational, educational, and social emotional challenges. The labor shortages, for example, we had turnover of about a third of our bus drivers and about 20% of our nutrition staff, and since the pandemic began. And as you know, and we are a governmental agency, despite the fact that we try to pride ourselves as being innovative and moving forward. It takes a while to turn a ship. And so where we had some industries able to change, for example, their pay structure immediately to impact the labor shortage and to make sure that they could recruit. We have a set budget. We're a nonprofit. And so it was things like we lost many of our nutrition workers who could go and work at McDonald's and make $15, $20 an hour. And we had our salary and our budget had not been set up for that. We had bus drivers that could go elsewhere and take advantage of the market and what was happening. And so it really impacted how we operated as a district. And in addition to that, we have our bus drivers, for example, we have a lot of retired professionals that do it. It's a part-time job. And a lot of them are in the age group where they weren't comfortable continuing to be around a lot of snot-nosed kids, to put it lightly. And so it was just a situation we found ourselves in, and we had to figure out how to address it. 71% increase we had with our mental health services to our students. We found that the isolation of students were extremely impactful on them. And we had, for our older students who are in a time of life where they're finding themselves, and usually that's done through socializing with like peers and different peers. We found that there was a missing piece there, and many of them did not know how to deal with situations that they normally would have. We've also found that our younger students, our poor second graders, for example, this school year have never had a normal school year. And we're finding that academically, they are suffering the most. And because and I said education is my background and expertise, it is almost impossible to teach a kid to read virtually. And so you find at those critical age groups where students have developmental foundational skills that are necessary, we're finding that they are struggling the most now that we're back. And so we're looking at ways to really impact those students and to ensure that we can catch them up as much as possible. But I will tell you, I fully anticipate 10, 15 years from now, us still saying, oh, those are the COVID kids. I just think the impact will be that deep and wide and continuous. Kids, however, on the most kids, the mass majority of kids, I will say, this school year, and this school year has not been a normal school year by no means, but so many kids have really making such great strides and progress that it is really unprecedented, but I'm really excited. And that also goes back to the fact that we have some excellent teachers and support staff in our buildings each day. We had more than 18,000 students who missed at least one day of school this semester just due to quarantines and exposure to COVID. We've lost approximately 120,000 hours or days of instructional time due to COVID quarantines, the shortage of substitute teachers, and teacher absences also demonstrates the fact that in January, for 2 years, we've had 768 substitutes that worked at least once, while 564 substitute worked at least once a month. We've had more uncovered classrooms this year than ever before, and we've really struggled with getting things done during this pandemic. But I don't want to spend all of my time talking about the negativity of the pandemic, because there were some great things that actually occurred as a result, some great things we've learned, and some great outcomes as a result. So if you don't mind, I'd like to take a few minutes just to really share some personal stories possibly, as well as just give you a lot of the some of the major things that are happening that we're very proud of. When we started the year, with 110 to 120 openings a day in our child nutrition, our principals, our counselors, people in central office all stepped up, went to campuses, and served kids every single day. You would see the principal with a hairnet on and gloves on and making sure our kids were fed each day. You had some bus drivers that would come in between their morning and afternoon routes and just help serve dinners. Teachers would go in and serve. It was really a community effort for us to really make sure that we're taking care of students. In addition to that, we put on an all call for bus drivers early on. As you know, if you watched any news, there were cancellations every single day. And but we really had such innovation happen. We had campuses that would go, one campus, for example, when got red wagons that would go pick up students in red wagons and walk them back to school. We had campuses who would really, families who coordinated carpools to pick kids up and bring them to school, and really created a community. And we had many of our administrators that said, I'll go get my CDL and I'll go pick up a route to help make sure kids are getting to school. So really a lot of people came together to make sure that we were doing what was best for kids. We had a lot of families at one particular campus at Glendover, who don't speak English. And so they organized a campaign to where they got lots of families or lots of volunteers that were bilingual. And they would go to make sure they would go to different houses and speak to them and explain things about what some of the offerings were during this time, and so that they can take full advantage of those. We had a third grade teacher, for example, at Athens Childsburg, who knows that 2 of our students had fallen behind on remote learning. And she began staying every single day after school. And because the family was terrified to bring their kids to school. And but she would come every single day. She'd stay with them, and they'd bring their 2 students, and she'd stay. We had another student who would come, a parent who would come with her student after hours, and the parent was so fascinated and pleased with the teacher teaching her children that she began to listen and study, and she went back and got her GED as a result of some of the things that she learned while just staying there with her child after hours. Frederick Douglass High School has over 287,000 square feet. And due to the labor shortage, the campus did not have nearly enough custodial staff in order to support it. And you could go any particular evening and you would see the principal with the mopping the floors, the counselor with the broom, teachers wiping down desks and tables and making and vacuuming, and just really everyone coming together as a community in order to support what was necessary to be done. And when we couldn't find disposable trays for our cafeterias due to the supply chain issues, our nutrition employees cut out clamshell containers in half and created trays. And when they ran out of ramekins for fruits, we shifted to baggies. And it's just been, and then our community partners have truly stepped up and have provided a lot of things for our families as well. It's just really been an overwhelming sense of coming together and making sure that everyone together is making a difference and impacting students for the better. So a positive outcome of the pandemic has really been also the acceleration and innovation of personalized learning here in Fayette County. Before the pandemic, we had a 5-year rollout plan for laptops. And of course, like I said, it was things that we had to reinvent ourselves overnight when we had to go virtual. And so before the pandemic, there was about 20,000 Chromebooks and laptops that were assigned to students. Many of those are classroom sets to where students, it was one-on-one, but in the classroom. But today we have over 51,000 laptops. Every child is assigned a laptop, and every child that does not have internet access at home receives a hotspot to take that laptop home and to work from home. In March of 2020, we had 250 teachers and 7,400 students who were active in one of our platforms called Canvas, which is an online learning platform. And now we have 100% of our teachers and 100% of our students in that. We've learned to do Zoom like this, and you guys have learned from this as well, like none other. And we've really learned how to be more effective and waste a lot less time and utilize technology services more than ever. So that's really been a great thing for us to innovate. Also, we have, for example, Julius Marks Elementary instituted a Project Connect, where teachers, counselors, and interpreters of staff set up tents outside of some of their most vulnerable neighborhoods where students lived, and they were able to provide direct services to those families. And like I said, some of the issues our teachers ran into is obviously teachers were taught to teach in person. They weren't taught to teach online, and they had to switch overnight to do that. And learning is truly a relational profession. It's very difficult. Most of us don't remember how we learned how to read or how we learned certain things, but we remember our teachers. We remember how they made us feel. We remember, for me in particular, I remember the smell of a particular, my favorite teacher. I remember whatever perfume she wore. And it's a relational thing, and it's hard to get that. So our teachers were longing for that, and they created very innovative ways to make that happen. And some of them put in many more hours than normal. There was a misconception that teachers at home, it's a lot easier now that they're at home and families are at home. But in fact, teachers were working many more hours than they normally would. At Dixie, our PTA coordinated a drive-through program for families to pick up kits of activities because they wanted, kids were on the computers all day, but they wanted kids to have a manipulative. They wanted them to be able to have different activities that they can work with their families. And so they provided baggies and products for teachers and families to use at home. And so it's just been a variety of things that have really helped us make sure that we're connecting a lot more with home. The impact of connection and innovation to students as individuals and the young people we serve. It's also, here's 3 more examples I'll tell you. We had at Tates Creek High School, members were assigned a group of students to build a relationship with, and during the spring of 2020. And after a junior, her name was Audrey Tops, felt special connection with the law enforcement officer, she decided to switch her academy focus. She was going in a completely different direction. And she said that she realized that she was not fulfilling her passion. And just by this one-on-one relationship that she had. And she actually graduated last year and was accepted into the US Navy and is now stationed in Connecticut. Another one, we had a Lexington Traditional Magnet School teacher, Sarah Blade. She made a connection with students and their families while schools were closed because of COVID-19. And she took out of her evening and weekends to work with a mother and to make sure that mother ended up going back to school and is now finished at her degree and is now a teacher in a classroom currently. And we also, the last example, if we, to move online learning, last year provided Opportunity Middle School, which is a middle college, I'm sorry, which is we have students who are now graduating high school with an associate's degree as well, because it provided opportunities for them to take advantage of more online classes to advance and to continue to take additional courses. That was something that they were interested in. So in so many ways, the pandemic has given us greater appreciation for the things that we really just took for advantage, or took for granted, I'm sorry. For 9 months, our teachers were in their living rooms, in their kitchens, and working with their students on a computer, but families got to see the side of teaching that they never get to experience. And I think it really drew us closer as to our families and our community, to the teachers, to realize that importance. So here's what's next for Fayette County. Now that we're hopefully mostly done with the pandemic and going in a direction to where it will be behind us. And I knock on wood every time I say that, because I know and I've experienced that can change overnight. But we're going to continue our focus on equity. That is something that is extremely important to the Board of Education, and it's extremely important to me. And it's really important if we're going to move our district in a direction to where all of our students will continue to grow to their greatest potential and able to fill their wildest dreams. We're currently working on a 5-year strategic plan. That strategic plan we began that process last semester around October, and we've had many opportunities to get as much feedback as we can from as many stakeholders as we can. And we've really worked diligently to make sure that everyone had an opportunity to say what would they like our school system to look like in 5 years. Some of the things I've heard that really struck a chord with me most is so many people said, we've done this every 5 years for the last 20 years. And it seems like we continue to say some of the same things we'd like to see. We continue to have some of the same problems that we'd like to overcome. And so my commitment and my focus and goal is to, in the next 5 years, to have no one be able to say that any longer, and to really make sure that this is a meaningful document that is truly impactful to enhancing Fayette County Public Schools and changing the lives of students, teachers, staff, and our community long term. We're working very closely through that strategic plan on the portrait of a graduate. So we've often looked at, this is how we'd like our kids to graduate with these skills. For example, we want them academically prepared. We want them college and career ready. We want them to be civically engaged and culturally competent and ultimately equipped for the future. But that doesn't happen their senior year. That doesn't happen. That takes a process over time that should begin as early as pre-kindergarten and go throughout their. So we're really taking time now to look at what skills are they learning at each step along the way in order to get them to that final destination, and really focusing on that quite a bit to ensure that our students are not only receiving academic grades and progress, but we're also looking at what they're doing. And as always, I think this is a future of education in any successful organization that is educating the next generation. We're looking at innovative programs and furthering those offerings for our students and making sure that we continue to take care of the whole child. It's a unique time in education. I think it was a growth spurt for education. One of the things I will tell you, before the pandemic, it had been said, if someone were to die, that died 100 years ago, were to come back now and just take a look at what we were doing, the only thing they would still recognize was a school building. We still had kids sitting in desks. We still had kids in rows. We still had a teacher up teaching it wasn't chalkboard, but it's a whiteboard. And so one of the things that this has really done is pushed us towards innovation. And I don't want to lose that momentum. I think it's important that we continue to do that. Fayette County is truly a leader in the state of Kentucky. Many districts look to us to see what's next, look to us to see what works. And so I am committed to ensuring that we continue along that path and continue to be that leader and continue to provide opportunities for students. The one area when I talk about equity that we continue to struggle with is to ensure that those students who are economically disadvantaged and those students that come from historically disenfranchised groups are not performing at the level as their peers that are outside of those groups. And as we're currently 54% economically disadvantaged and 56% minority student population. And so, and each year that grows by a slight percentage. And if we don't get a hold of it now, we'll find ourselves in a situation to where we're behind the 8 ball. So I'm committed to doing that as well. But great things are in store. Things are going well, and I am just truly excited about what's to come for Fayette County Public Schools. So I will open it up for any questions that anyone has.
All right, questions for Dr. Liggins?
Well, I'm a former history teacher. I'm retired, obviously, but I'm a little concerned about some of the legislation that's gone through, because I came from a school where we were 39% white back in Iowa, and we had a lot of refugee students. We had a large African-American population. We had kids from Africa. So it's a real concern for me to see some of the new laws. How are you going to help your teachers to accommodate your minority students while also following the laws? And does it affect books that you can get for your school?
Yes, it has not so far impacted the books we receive. And it's unfortunate. I would agree with you. It's unfortunate that the General Assembly decided to really micromanage in an area that was well out of their scope, in my opinion, and their expertise for sure. It is very specific as to what should be taught, which texts, which historical speeches. And one of the issues with that legislation, obviously, is there's very few women on the list. There's very few minorities on the list. And their voices just aren't heard as part of the historical context. And I would argue that that is a problem not only for our minority students, that's a problem for all
For
students.
everybody, yeah.
And so we really are looking at, I anticipate this legislation to be fought in court. I also anticipate it to really impact. It hasn't come to fruition yet because the social studies standards were just redone about last year, I believe. And so it takes time to write the new curriculum. And so at this point, our teachers truly do take have the autonomy to do what's best for their students. And as you stated, you've been a teacher, so you know quite often you plan for a lesson to go one way, and student interest and student engagement will take it in a completely different direction. And that's just good teaching. And so we don't want to stop doing that, but we will of course follow the law as long as we have to, but we're also going to take care of our students and ensure that their questions and curiosities are being fulfilled, and that they have every opportunity that they can to see themselves in their learning and in their text, because representation matters.
Well, I think that's really important. And I think we need to protect our students too, because they all need to know that we are what we really are in this country, instead of ignoring some good and bad things that have happened in our past.
So true.
We've had good, people always are saying, well, you're making us, they're saying, well, if you're probably teaching it so you make us look bad. No, we're just being honest with the children, and we're not making people look bad, and we give them hope for the future.
Yes,
So,
our history is our history. I mean, it's, I'm the descendant of slaves, and I still would not want to live in another country in the world. I'm a proud American, but it doesn't change our history. It doesn't change. And I think learning our history really just makes us better. But you'll have to convince some legislatures of that as well.
thank you.
Dr. Liggins, we had a couple more questions.
Okay.
Susan Piney talked about the fact that the legislature did not require salary increases for teachers. Will Fayette County be able to provide increases this year?
We will. There was a misconception actually passed by, we did increase the legislature did increase educational funding. However, what they failed to acknowledge is that we are still well behind the inflation. And that was before the accelerated inflation that we're currently experiencing. And so it's really still up to local taxpayers that will be impacting Fayette County. We are in a very good condition financially. We have a very strong tax base that just through overall property increases, et cetera, that we more than likely will not require to raise taxes in order to give a raise. But there are several communities that will, and despite the fact that the legislature is saying that they've increased funding for education. But we do anticipate being able to give some sort of raise this year. We did a huge salary study, as I stated earlier, that we had issues with, or we still do, recruiting some of our more classified personnel that are outside of the regular profession. We have bus drivers and custodians and grounds crew and all of those professions. And so we did a huge study to see how can we come up to market with those. So my recommendation to the board this spring will be to implement that. And that will give some of our employees well over a 10% raise for some of our more non-educator type jobs. But we do anticipate that everyone will receive some sort of increase.
Great, thank you. Another question, under the conditions today, what can the school system do to attract and retain teachers, especially those that reflect the diversity of student populations?
Well, there's an issue in general in our nation, not just in Fayette County or in the Commonwealth. We are experiencing a shortage of individuals going into the field of education. And statistically, those who go into the classroom thereafter only last about 5 years, 0.5% of those. So 50% last about 5 years. And so one of the things we do plan on doing is really just promoting education as a desirable profession in general. I think that's important, and that's something we need to do locally. But I actually have a meeting arranged to meet with the Assistant Secretary of Education, Deputy Secretary of Education, to talk about having a national campaign that really promotes education as a desirable profession for young people to consider. We've also taken advantage, the legislature has fortunately allowed alternative education programs for people who have degrees in something else, to allow them to come into to education without having to go back to school to get a completely different degree, and have them to have a certification program that teaches them pedagogy and the practices that are necessary for teaching in the classroom. We're looking at having a grow your own experience. We have many of our teacher aides and individuals that are doing other things that are committed to being in education. They've been in Fayette County, they're interested because they're making a difference, and working with them to help them finish their degrees, and possibly helping them financially. We've created some partnerships with quite a few universities throughout the Commonwealth to help with that as well. And finally, we are really amping up our programs in our high schools that will show our students, give our students, and I mentioned earlier about the associate degrees that we have some students that are graduating with. We want to amp that up to where we can possibly have students graduate with associate's degrees in child development or something that will carry on, and they can possibly become classroom teachers after going to finish their bachelor's degree in as little as 2 years. So it's an all-around approach. I personally feel this is probably the most critical issue facing education at this point, because if K-12 education is the only profession that creates all other professions, it's the foundation of, so if we do not get that right, we are going to find ourselves in quite the dilemma.
Thank you. Diana Cluett had a question. Diana? She's off.
Actually, he just answered it. That was my question.
Okay.
So he did a great job answering it. Thank you.
Good. Jen Jackson had some questions for you, Dr. Liggins.
Okay.
Hi. Love your talk. It's like really inspiring, and I also appreciate your philosophy of resourcing to the people who are educated in certain disciplines to provide the guidance. I'm a pediatrician, I'm actually a pediatric nephrologist, and so it has been frustrating to see people who do not have medical knowledge like making decisions about public health issues. And so I really appreciate that. That's like the true heart of an educator, right? But my question is, right before the pandemic, as our organization, we're really about voter education and getting young people to start the practice and habit of voting. And so right before the pandemic, we had developed a program. It's called the We Vote program, and we're rolling it out to all the high schools in Fayette County, public high schools, private high schools, to go into the classrooms, have a half-hour presentation, talk about voting, why it's important, get people registered to vote, because everybody can register to vote online. And of course, we did the first couple. Our biggest one we did was at Henry Clay High School. We went into 17 classrooms within a span of an hour and a half. We had like 6 teams of 2 or 3 volunteers and to register voters. And we were off to a great start. And then the pandemic shut everything down. So we tried to pivot, and then we created a video to provide information. But now we're still sort of struggling to try to figure out how to remorph to be able to provide that information for students, and didn't know if you had some suggestions on kind of ways that you think would be effective in engaging students. We know that setting up a voter registration table in the cafeteria is not very effective. It's having these conversations, but then looking at potentially maybe virtual education, maybe more effective, or how we can best serve our students in Fayette County.
Well, and I will tell you that's a challenge for everyone at this point. And what we found to be most effective is social media. Our kids are on social media, and finding ways to connect with them. There are targeted ways because, Facebook used to be the thing for, and then they figured all of us old folks got on there, so they went to another platform, and they keep changing, and we can't keep up. And so one of the things that we've really started doing is, and it's very reasonable, because there's ads now on social media. So really, as we started purchasing ads that will really promote some of the things we're doing, like when we're having our school choice options, our for magnet schools, when that opens. We're making sure that we're pushing those out, and you can target a population to do that. We also do have most of our morning announcements, as we would call them, are digital now. They can be also pushed to our students' phones. They can be placed on a television in the classroom, and many of our students learn through that way. And so it really has to be a multi-pronged system, because students are everywhere. But I can't tell you, I think actually being in the classroom and having those discussions too, and I know it's we're just now getting to the point where we're even having people back in our buildings, but that too is still very impactful. You will find that especially our older students, really, because we are, as I mentioned about our portrait of a graduate, we talk about being civically engaged and informed. And so it's something that you will find most of them take a huge interest in, when you're able to take time out of where they are. You have a captive audience and they can do that. But it's an ongoing challenge constantly. It's something that schools are facing every single day. So I can only imagine organizations such as yours that are partnering with us to how to get there. But I would love to put you, Dr. Jackson, in touch with our public engagement officer, and we can definitely help with that. I think that's an extremely important thing that you guys are doing, and I appreciate that work.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Tip Moody had a question. Tip, are you there?
I'm here. Dr. Liggins, discourse over the past several months concerning public education has dealt with parental involvement in the classroom curriculum and their individual school systems. Every one of us here on this screen supports our own local school districts. What kind of a role and or voice do you think that we as tax-paying citizens without children in the classroom should have concerning education policy?
I totally, you should have lots of involvement and lots of input. And one of the things that I've learned throughout my career, and especially the last few months of the General Assembly here in Kentucky for the first time, is legislatures really, from my experience, have a lack of respect for what educators are telling them about educational policy. It's almost as if they expect us to say it instead of they're telling us because we want you to be informed. And so hearing from individuals such as yourself, who they realize are voters, that they realize are outside of education and still believe this way, I think can convince them that it's just not educators saying that this is how things should work. This is what works best for learning. This is what works best for a school system. But really being an advocate for schools, really calling and emailing and talking to your representatives and your senators to ensure that they are completely aware that this is not just an educator concern. This isn't something that is just a parent concern. These are things that we as a community want to happen. The school system is the heart of every community. If you have a poor school system, I can assure you the community is going to rapidly decline in many, many areas. And so it really is all of our business to ensure that our school system is effective and that there's not laws that are created that are going to hinder the necessary progress and initiatives that need to take place in order to advance it.
Great. Dr. Liggins, someone asked about the state of civics education in Fayette County. Do you have some comments about that, or?
I can't I don't think I've looked into that enough to really have, I do know that it is part of our, again, our portrait of a graduate. And so it's woven throughout many of our curricular offerings. But I don't know if civics is a particular course that's required for graduation or not, but I do know that many of our teachers take it very seriously and teach it throughout other content areas, which I've seen personally.
Right. Jen Jackson, I'm not sure if you want to speak to this, but she's wondering what the plans are for the $10 million property that's for Sales Road, and I'm just blanked out on the
On web, yeah, it's on web.
Nathan Headley, right?
The plan is to expand some innovative programs. It's not yet necessarily been determined. We have certain programs that we know are in temporary buildings, and some are growing. For example, we have our girls' STEM school that is supposed to grow all the way up until to 8th grade. It will be a kindergarten through 8th grade campus. The campus that they're currently in, definitely, if it continues on the pathway that it's going now, will not be able to, the building they're in will not be able to hold the capacity of the student body. So that's one option. It's large enough to have a couple of schools on it. And so, but really it will not be a traditional school. There's no neighborhood school needed in that area. So it will be a magnet school or our choice school that students will be able to take advantage of and to expand some of those innovative offerings that we are looking to do.
Great. Are there any other questions for Dr. Liggins? Sounds like there aren't, but Dr. Liggins, you've just provided us with such great information, and just to hear about how the community and the school system all came together to help during the pandemic. I mean, it's so encouraging and so heartwarming. We really appreciate hearing that, you know, what was happening behind the scenes. And I know I'm personally excited that you're here in Fayette County and all these wonderful plans for
Mary,
the future.
I'm sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. It looks like Ruth might have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, Ruth, sorry.
We
Go
have
ahead.
a question about the board. We have only had 5 members of the board, and they are not very representative of all the community. And I wondered, how can we change that? What's the methodology? I have written to the newspaper and nothing came about there, but is there some way we can make that a larger committee and make it much more inclusive to represent who actually lives and goes to school in our community?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, that is something, as you know, we have an equity council that is a very diverse group of individuals that are really, that's one of the initiatives that they're taking on. And I will tell you from working with this board and all members currently who identify as white, their lens on equity and their commitment to ensuring diversity and practices that impact all students is couldn't be better. And I completely agree and understand that representation matters. And but one of the things when I've heard this quite a bit, I tell people I would much rather have 5 individuals that look alike and understand the necessity of all students, regardless of their backgrounds, than to have a diverse group of a colorful group of board members that don't have that understanding. And so I really think, and although it's a concern for many and a legitimate one, I do not think we are in a situation to where populations are being ignored because of it. And so I think, and our community has become so diverse currently, we will never have complete representation of everyone that lives within our community. So it's really, if we do get more diversity, everyone still is going to have to learn to expand their mindset to look at all children, all populations, all cultures, and to ensure that we are we're looking at kids in Fayette County and not just our particular, what we identify with. And so, but one of the ways you can, I mean, there's the Equity Council is really, there's a monthly meeting for the Equity Council, and this has been a huge topic of discussion. And they're looking at possibly having some representatives from possibly a community member come and have a voice at the board seat. There's been some discussion of expanding to a 7-member board, but we also have to be very careful because these are democratically elected individuals, and their constituents did vote them in, and I would hope they were voted in based off of their beliefs and their platform, and not necessarily their race. And so we don't want to find ourselves to where we're discriminating because of that either. So it's been a very sensitive topic and issue, but it's one that is very legitimate and one that I've had a lot of time to look into, discuss, and I thought maybe I was going to get away without having to answer at this meeting, but but yes, it is something we're definitely looking into.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. I just as kind of an aside to this point, I know that the local NAACP chapter is trying to encourage people in the community of color to perhaps throw their hat in the ring, as they say. And so, you know, perhaps the next election will see more diversity in the people that are running. So just to point that out. But do we have more questions for Dr. Liggins? This has just been a wonderful program, Dr. Liggins, and thank you so much for all this information. We did make the recording of today's talk, and so that will be on our website and also on Outreach Circle. Our website is lwvlexington.com, and that will be on the website next week. So anyone who is not here today will be able to you know, listen to this talk, and I think they would be very encouraged by all the things that are happening in Fayette County schools. So thank you very much.
Well, I definitely appreciate your time and this opportunity, and I appreciate what you're doing and what you stand for. So thank you for having me, and hopefully you enjoy the remainder of this beautiful weekend we're having.
Yes, it is wonderful. Thank you so much. Goodbye, Dr. Liggins.
Bye.
And
All
Mary
right.
Cindy, I had an announcement.
Yes, Cindy.
Very quickly, I just wanted to remind people that there will be our very first Wine Wednesday with the State League this coming Wednesday at 7 p.m. You should have in your inbox an invitation with details. This is a way that we are trying to connect league members across the state. And at this particular event Wednesday, we will give you an update on what happened with the legislature. We'll hear from some other leagues, and we'll hear about some things that are going on across the state related to the upcoming elections. So we hope you'll join us Wednesday at 7.
Great.
And I just wanted to point out that I have updated the website so you can actually join. So this link is not a register for the meeting like we usually have. This is actually a link that you join the meeting. So so you'll have to click on it like at the time of the meeting to join it, but you can, it'll be on the main website, homepage of our website. Sorry.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else that we would like to talk about today? It's been a wonderful annual meeting and a great talk by Dr. Liggins, very impressive and encouraging too, I think. Anything
Mary,
else?
what's our next event that people can go to?
Our next event is, well, there's a board meeting in May. There is not one in April. This was our April board meeting, but our May 26th, it's a Thursday night at 7 p.m. We have Mr. John Rosenberg, who is a survivor of the Holocaust. He lives in Prestonsburg. He has been a civil rights lawyer, and he is going to talk about his memories of Kristallnacht, which is that event in 1938 in Nazi Germany, where Nazi soldiers and German citizens destroyed Jewish businesses and homes, and also injured and in some cases killed Jewish citizens. So I think it's going to be a fascinating, and maybe with what's happening in our world in Ukraine, this is very a good thing to hear about and know how these things happen, and hopefully how we can prevent them in the future. So I hope you'll tune in. It will be on the web. It is on the website, and you can register, and we'll be reminding people about that program. And he is a friend of Cindy and Richard Heine, and so we appreciate her letting us know about that, his program. All
Actually,
right.
it's not quite on the website yet, but it will be soon.
Oh, okay. It's in process. We were just in touch with John yesterday, and he's given us some little updates on some information, so that's good. All right, anything else? Are we ready to call for an adjournment?
Oh, I wanted to mention one other
Oh,
thing. We also
okay.
have our book club, which is the third Wednesday of the month. Maureen, do you want to talk about what we're reading this month?
Yes, our next month is The Sum of Us, What Racism Costs Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together by Heather McGee. And then that will be for May. And then June and July, we will have a recess. And then we're going to do a book on Madeline McDowell Breckenridge, the name of which I don't have, Mary, the name that you brought up. Well, it's a kind of a long one, so you'll have all summer to read it.
Right, I think
Is
it's
it the one by
Madeline
Melba
McDowell
Hay?
Breckenridge. I'm sorry, Jen.
Is it
And
the
the
one by
new-
Melba Hay?
Yes, and the New South. I believe that's it.
So, and I will get that online here pretty soon, both of them. But The Sum of Us by Heather McGee is and What Racism Costs Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together was an all Kentucky book. And there's a lot of copies of that at the library that you can get. So,
Right. And
Thank
we should, yeah,
Um,
thank you, Mo. We should mention also, oh, and Zitzi said Heather McGee will also be speaking
At UK.
on the 28th of this month. So if you'd like to join that, that's an
On
opportunity
Thursday.
to hear her, right? The other thing I wanted to mention is that Jen and I have been involved with planning the June 10th dedication of the suffragist marker, the Pomeroy marker at Henry Clay Estate, Ashland, for Madeline Breckenridge McDowell. And I mean, Madeline McDowell Breckenridge, I'm sorry, I like to flip her names for some reason. It's going to be a fun event. It will be outside. And if it's a nice day, we'll all be there having lemonade and cookies and hearing a couple of speakers, including Melba Hay, who wrote that book about Madeline Breckenridge McDowell, or Madeline McDowell Breckenridge. Sorry, it's been a long year.
Is that still scheduled for 5 o'clock? Is that the
Yes, it's at 5 o'clock that day. Yeah. And there'll be information on our website, and we hope all of you will come and have fun and actually see the actress who portrayed Madeline McDowell Breckenridge at our event maybe 3 years ago, a Chautauqua event that we had for new members and other members. And she did an excellent job, and she's going to give a speech as if she's going to be dressed as Madeline and give a speech that Madeline might have given. So it should be great fun. All right, anything
I
else?
have one, yes, one announcement. Our
Okay.
expungement clinic and job fair at the Central Bank Center on Friday. I'm still looking for volunteers to help with that. The hours are 8:30 to 6. So if you're available at any time during that time span, please let me know. Several of you have let me know that you can't. But if you know of anyone outside the board who would like to participate, please let me know.
I will be glad to do it, Tip. Do you have times kind of set out? 2 hours?
Well, I was thinking shifts from like 8:30 to 1 and then 1 to 6.
Okay. Alrighty, I will let you know.
Or
I will
2
do it.
hours, any kind of increment in between.
Okay, sounds great. All right. Let's try to remember that and help Tip out since he's organizing this for us. All right. Thank you to Lynn for being our secretary this year. We kind of talked her into it, but she's been wonderful and a wonderful member of the executive committee. Thanks so much, Lynn. And thanks to everybody for being here today. I think it was a very good meeting. We've got a lot accomplished and we're ready to start our new year come July 1st.
And
So
everybody promo vote 411.
Yes.
So it is a great place to get voter information. It's cool. There's like pictures of the candidates. They've answered questions. If you see candidates haven't answered questions, reach out to them, encourage them to submit their answers. Everyone's been invited to answer questions there. Also, you know, the website, we're going to have candidate forums. Liza's been doing a great job, a lot of work to get those candidate forums ready for us this year. Super informative. So give those a watch. You know, each one is usually like 30 to 45 minutes or so, but it really gives you a good idea of what candidates are like. So, and of course, you know, volunteers for anything you want to get involved with. We welcome everybody to help out. So we really appreciate everybody's hard work. We, you know, this is 100% volunteer run organization. And so the work doesn't happen without us. So, definitely we appreciate everyone's hard work that they've put in. I know it's like lots of hours of work to make these things happen, and just know that the community does appreciate what we're doing. And you know, I hear it frequently, and I try to relay that information, but anyway, so big appreciation. I want to say big ups to everybody. I've been watching this like dance video or whatever, and they say that all the time, but anyway, that's great appreciation for everybody. So thank you so much.
bye, everybody.
Great
Have a
speaker
good
today.
day.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes,
Well
very
then,
good.
thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Great
Thanks.
meeting. Thanks, guys. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.